Rules Committee come to order, and thank you very much for joining us. As we remember earlier this morning, we adjourned at the call of the chair. We are now prepared to move forth with a continuing resolution funding. I'd like to, if I can, give you the data and information that I have available, which may help us to know a little bit more about what would be in this bill.
I'm going to hold my breath.
I would not hold your breath because it may take me more than a minute, and I don't want to have you pass out.
Okay.
I was going to say, she would have us hold for a few minutes, and you don't want to do that, Chairman. Continues appropriations through February the 8th, 2019 for FY appropriations measures that have not yet been enacted, including agriculture, commerce, justice, science, financial services, homeland security, interior, environment, state foreign operations, transportation, and HUD. The temporary extensions included in previous CRs of expiring authorities are also included. The National Flood Insurance Program extended for the duration of the CR, once again, February the 8th. The Violence Against Women's Act extended for the duration of the CR, once again, February the 8th. The Pesticide Registration Improvement Act extended for duration of the CR, once again, February the 8th. The WAL funding, $5.7 billion for WAL funding. Now, there also, which I do not have the exact number, but is a figure that we believe is about $8.7 billion that would be for, so we'll say round it to 8, but about 8.7 we believe is the number that was agreed to by the Senate for disaster funding. It's a big number, big fires, big problems. So it's in the bill. We wrote it in a way that the context that complies with the that Senate language. So there's where we are. We're now going to see if anybody has any questions, because I was the witness.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I just may, I'm going to be very brief because I know we want to move on here, but I got to tell you, this place is really screwed up. I mean, we're talking about a 7-week continuing resolution that was approved overwhelmingly, in fact, by voice, I think by voice vote in the Senate. No controversy. You know, on the Democratic side, I think we were all prepared to vote for it, even though we don't like short-term CRs, because you're kicking all this down the road for us to clean up in February. And all because of a stupid border wall that is a total waste of money, that will do nothing to enhance border security. And it is just, I mean, it is beyond the pale. I mean, this would be funny if it weren't so tragic. And I just, you know, I mean, you guys run everything. You control the House, the Senate, and the White House, so you can do whatever you want. But this is embarrassing. And I guess my question to you is, when you present the rule, will there be a separate vote on the border wall so that if a majority in this House do not want to waste money on a border wall, that we can then vote on a short-term continuing resolution to keep the government running? Or is everything going to be packed together so we have to go through this charade where if we pass it, then it goes over the Senate, and then they don't take it, then we have to wait around for them to send it back for us to finally do the right thing?
Okay, well, good points. I will offer my hearty hope that next year you'll do better. Good luck.
We're going to try, but we're still in this year, unfortunately. Yeah.
Well, I agree with that. I'm entitled to wish you luck. Yeah. You're going to get a chance to go through these also again. Secondly, the border wall is not a silly issue or idea. Our men and women that are on the border are overrun. If we did not have that wall in place, as the gentleman knows, I've heard varying numbers, anywhere from 16 to 18,000 to 30,000 people are camped out right now along the border. And it effectively, the border wall is allowing for what would be the proper protection of our border. There are drugs, there are illegal people coming across. There's it is a mess. It's a human tragedy, and they're gathered at the wall. Otherwise, we would have our men and women overwhelmed.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if you yield.
If that were, I will. If it was your job down there, you would want and need help, even to be a humanitarian effort.
Yeah, well, the people I talk to at the border, talk about the need for additional personnel, talk about the need for infrastructure.
That's in here also.
They don't talk about this ridiculous border wall, which they all know is a waste of money.
But
whatever. We're not
not true.
we're not going to agree on the merits of a border wall. We think it's a waste of money and it's offensive. But putting that aside, my question is, are we going to vote on that separately? And
No.
if it goes down, so we're going to have to. It's going to be all combined, so that if it goes to the Senate, we have to wait around.
There will be a rule, and there will be one package.
Okay, thank you.
So, any other questions from the committee? Chairman, now be interested in a motion from the distinguished gentleman from Oklahoma.
Mr. Chairman, I move the committee grant a rule providing for the consideration of the Senate amendment to H.R. 695, the Department of Defense Appropriations Act of 2018. The rule makes an order of motion offered by the chair of the Committee on Appropriations or his designee that the House concur in the Senate amendment to H.R. 695 with an amendment consisting of the text of Rules Committee Print 115-88. The rule waives all points of order against consideration of the motion. The rule provides that the Senate amendment and the motion shall be considered as read. Finally, the rule provides 1 hour of debate on the motion equally divided and controlled by the chair and the ranking minority member of the Committee on Appropriations.
Thank you very much. You've heard the motion from the distinguished gentleman from Oklahoma. There's an amendment or discussion to that. Seeing none, the vote will now be on the motion from the distinguished gentleman from Oklahoma. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no.
No.
The ayes have it.
We ask for a roll call, Mr.
Gentlemen, ask for a roll call vote. Clerk will poll the committee.
Mr. Cole. Aye. Mr. Cole. Aye. Mr. Woodall. Mr. Burgess. Mr. Burgess. Aye. Mr. Collins. Mr. Byrne. Aye. Mr. Byrne. Aye. Mr. Newhouse. Mr. Buck. Ms. Cheney. Ms. Cheney. Aye. Mr. McGovern.
No.
Mr. McGovern. No. Mr. Hastings. Mr. Polis. Mrs. Torres. No. Mrs. Torres. No. Mr. Chairman.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman. Aye.
Yes, sir. If the clerk could please tell me how the gentleman, Mr. Collins, has recorded?
Mr. Collins is not recorded.
Would the gentleman? Thank you very much.
Mr. Collins, aye.
The distinguished gentleman from Georgia, has he voted?
The gentleman from
recorded?
Lawrenceville, Georgia is not recorded.
If the gentleman would wish to record his vote, the gentleman may do so. As an aye. The gentleman say aye.
Mr. Woodall, aye.
If the clerk could please report that total.
7 yeas, 2 nays.
There's one other.
7 yeas, 2 nays. Excuse me just a moment, please. The distinguished gentleman from Freedom, Colorado, does the gentleman wish to vote on this motion? The gentleman would be recorded as an aye.
Mr. Buck, aye. 8 yeas, 2 nays.
The motion does pass 8-2. Accordingly, I will be handling that for Republicans.
And I'll handle it for the
And the
Democrats.
distinguished gentleman from Massachusetts will handle this for Democrats.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Do we have any idea when this might come up?
Pretty quickly. Excuse me just a second. Oh, Mr. Cole is going to handle this. It's an appropriations matter, and I appreciate you doing that. Thank you very much. I would anticipate that we will move very rapidly to the floor to do the rule.
Okay.
Does the distinguished gentlewoman from Wyoming have a question for me?
Does the chairman anticipate that we'll be back again?
Said that the chairman anticipate that we'll be back again.
I anticipate we're going to move to the floor. We're going to do the rule. We will then vote on the bill. We will pass the bill. And my advice would be to every member of the Rules Committee, we'd appreciate you standing by until we have finalized our work, and I will notify us when we've done that. So I'd like to ask that we stick around. Does that answer the gentlewoman's question? Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Okay, we've now done our work for this measure.